Very warm afternoon to everyone present. I, Sujan Sahai, your host for today, on behalf of my hardworking team and this institution, Delhi Metropolitan Education, wholeheartedly welcome you all to International Symposium on Deliberations on Rethinking the Environment, Sustainability in Modern Era. This is the technical session 5 themed Sustainable Development and the Protection of Human Rights, where participants across the globe would be sharing their views and opinions regarding the different aspects of environmental issues and their effects on humans, along with ideas and suggestions to overcome them with prime focus on sustainability. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to warmly welcome the chairs for this session. First, we have with us Professor Dr. Antonieta Elia Ma'am. Ma'am is an associate professor of law at University of Santiago de Compostela, Spain. Ma'am is also a senior legal advisor on HR standards implementation and a member of the Mediterranean Network of Experts on Climate Change. Ma'am has held different positions like as adjunct professor of international law at University of Rome, and in 2012 to 2013 she has been the guest lecturer of international law at University of Minho, Portugal. She has also been the scientific advisor for the Conference of Public Health Association since 2000. I'm very sorry. She has also been the scientific advisor for the recently published book Promoting Global Peace and Civic Engagement through Education and the World Conference of Public Health Association since 2013. Ma'am has been also legal intern, respectively, with International Commission of Jurists, the former delegation of the European Union Commission to UN, and the United Nations Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. Dr. Elia is also a member of Academic Council on the United Nations System. We are pleased to have you here with us, ma'am. Now we also have Dr. R.K. Randhawa, ma'am. Ma'am is the Associate Professor of Law and Academic Coordinator at Delhi Metropolitan Education. Ma'am has also served as an Assistant Professor of Law at Amity Law School, Delhi, GHD Institute of Law for Women, and Lovely Professional University, Jalandhar. She did her master's with specialization in criminal law. Dr. Randhawa ma'am has attended many national, international seminars and workshops, and also presented the research papers at several conferences of national and international repute. We welcome you, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite the chairs to kindly give their keynote addresses. Dr. Professor Antonieta Elia, ma'am.
Hey, thank you very much, Sirizan. It is my pleasure to co-chair with Dr. Randhawa. Nice to meet you, even virtually. That session, that important session. I had a look to the paper that you kindly shared with me, and I found them many with a lot of very central issues in relation to climate change and human rights, environment and human rights, and especially, for example, just to quote one of the presenters is centered in relation to what I already mentioned in the introductory, in the opening session, in relation to the role of the local communities and indigenous people to decision making in climate change and the impact that climate change has over those communities living in equilibrium during so long time with nature, and to communities for in environmental centered and which developed traditions to living in harmony with nature and mark their identity with nature. So that's just to make an example. So I wish to congratulate all of them for their invaluable contribution and to invite them to share the views and to think that like just a first step, because we need more and more engagement, not only at theoretical level, but also to grasp the theory and to try to apply it into reality. That mechanism of conjunction in a binary way between theory and practice, especially when we talk about human rights, it's really fundamental, not only in relation to climate change, human rights and climate change, but in general terms when we talk into human rights. No effectiveness of that right, it's possible if no policy implementing it is in place. So law and policies must go hand in hand to have effective enjoyment of all human rights, and especially economic, social, and cultural ones. So I don't want to take too much time because I'm really happy to hear all the presenters, and I would like to give the floor to my distinguished co-host, and also make just a request to the presenter to be concentrated on the focal point of your presentation, because we already have your papers, and take approximately 12 minutes for each presentation, because it's important to have a conversation and a discussion about between us. So if we talk too much for every presentation, we cannot have the time at the end to have conversation, and it's important to have, in my idea. So thank you very much.
Okay, it's wonderful sharing a chair with Professor Antonetta Elia. Welcome you, ma'am, virtually now, and looking forward to see you and physically here in DME also. And I really congratulate the entire team of for organizing a wonderful event. And I'm looking forward for a fruitful session. I think Elia ma'am has very beautifully addressed in the inaugural session, and also very nice topic. I would learn. I'm sure we all are going to get something out of this session, that sustainable development and the protection of human rights, which is very, very important. Human rights are really a need of the hour. Is one of the very important aspect that needs to be looked into. And let's start with the session. And as ma'am said, that please restrict your timings, and that will be very, very good for all of us. Yeah, thank you. Start. Please start, Srijan.
I believe there has been a problem at his end, a technical problem. So I will continue with the due permission of the chairs. I would now like to call upon our first participant of the day, Ms. Devarupa Bhattacharya, who will be presenting on the topic Environmental Refugees, an Increasing Phenomenon in the 21st Century World.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Let me share my screen first. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So a very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Devarpa Bhattacharya. I'm pursuing my LLM from Amity University, Noida. Today, I want to present my topic, that is environmental refusals, a more common occurrence in the 21st century world. So first of all, I want to quote Mr. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Climate change is now found to be the key factor accelerating all other drivers. Forced displacement, these persons are not truly migrants in the sense that they are not moved voluntarily as forcibly displaced, not covered by the refugee protections regime. They find themselves in a legal void. Now to moving forward, environmental refugees, who are they? The term environmental refugees is one of the many phrases that are used to be the people who move due to changes in the environmental around them. The relation between the environment and human movement is complex. And for that reason, a number of different phrases and definitions are used to define environmental refugees. Climate refugees belong to a larger group of immigrants known as environmental refugees. Environmental refugees include immigrants forced to flee because of natural disasters such as volcanoes and tsunamis. Rising temperatures associated with global warming cause glaciers and ice caps to melt. This can cause flooding and make sea levels rise. Rising temperatures also lead to droughts and desertification. The transformation of arable land to desert. Some of these effects, as sea level rise, can put land completely underwater, making it uninhabitable, and it effects such as drought make it impossible for people in the region to support themselves. The International Red Cross estimates that there are more environmental refugees than political refugees fleeing from wars and other conflicts. The United Nations Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, says 36 million people were displaced by the disaster in 2009. The last year such as report was taken. Scientists predict this number rise to at least 50 million by 2050. Some say it could be as high as 200 million. The 2010 eruptions of Mount Meru in Java, Indonesia, created more than 25 refugees, people whose homes and communities are destroyed by environment disasters, either natural or man-made, are called environmental refugee. For instance, we can take the example of about the half population of Bangladesh lives less than 5 meters, 16.5 above sea level in 1995. Bangladesh Vola Island was half submerged by rising sea level, leaving 5 lakhs people homeless. Scientists predict Bangladesh will lose 70% land by 2050 due to flooding caused by climate change. The loss of land could lead many as 20 million environmental refugees from Bangladesh. Africa remains the prime locus of environmental refugees. There are a sizable number of other regions and countries. In China, with its 120 million internal migrants, at least 6 deserve to be regarded as environmental refugees, have been obliged to abandon farmlands due to shortage of agricultural plots in the wake of decades of population growth. In Mexico, there are 1 million new environmental refugees each year become assimilated in cities and a few return home. Finally, there are those people displaced involuntarily by public works project. Number of large dams which are increasing by 10 million every year with a cumulative total of million in China and India alone. Most of them resettle elsewhere, but the number of them remaining in a refugee-like situation totals 1 million. Now, I have shared the Haiti experience in America as a notable instance of the environmental refugee issues. Consider the experience for 4 years. Americans have watched streams of Haitian boat people heading to Florida. Not only have these people been fleeing political oppression, they have been by the grand scale rundown of the environmental resources, soil, water, and trees underpin the agricultural economy. Primarily, as a result of all environmental travel, at least 1.3 million Haitians, or 1 in the populace, have left their homelands. 3 lakhs of them hearing for the United States former times. Some of them were driven by political oppression and governmental corruption. But for most, predominant factor has been environmental, and to that extent, people deserve to be called environmental refugees. Environmental refugees worldwide. The extreme weather events from floods and storms to heat waves and drought are displacing an estimated 41 people each minute. And as temperatures continue to increase, climate extremes will worsen, sea levels will rise, and the world's most vulnerable will be brought. Between 2008 and 2016, 21.5 million people were displaced by climate and related disasters than those fleeing war or persecution, as extreme weather events continued to claim life and livelihoods across the globe. The 1995 estimate of 25 million environmental refugees is cautious and conservative. Scotland, throughout the developing world of 135 million people, threatened by severe desertification, 550 million people subject to chronic water shortages. Environmental, in short, there is a gradient of factors at work. At one end are those people who are by environment problems outright, and at the other and economic migrants who are voluntarily opportunists rather than refugees. In between is a gray zone in which category sometimes tends to merge into the other. The assessment so far is no more the first cut effort, albeit preliminary and exploratory, to come to grips with a prominent and growing problem that is all too real for those who endure it. However, much the purists argue about final definitions. On top of all these sub-problems is the lack of official recognition, whether on the governments or international agencies, that there is an environmental refugee problem at all. Then I have added some suggestions that because the environmental crisis is a human rights issue, some potential solutions include vulnerable communities to give a voice and securing international protection for environmental refugees. Calls on all countries to rapidly and fully implement the global climate agreement agreed in Paris in 2005 and support efforts to raise their emission reduction pledges over time in line with its goal, man-made emissions, and keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius on pre-industrial levels. Calls on governments to recognize climate refugees and support a new legal agreement to grow rights and their fair claim to our shared world. These populations currently have no support and legislation such as 1951 Geneva Convention to protect those fleeing war and persecution. Calls for a UN special reporter on human rights and climate change to examine the issue, climate change and human mobility, help protect the most disadvantaged and vulnerable population and across countries, and guide international action on climate-induced displaced. Lastly, but not the least, I want to conclude my presentation by saying that to be called a refugee is the opposite of an insult. It is a badge of strength, courage, and victory. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Now, I request the chairs, if they have any questions, they may ask.
Thank you very much, Devarupa. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, even if online. So it is a very important issue because you know that we are in the anniversary of the Refugee Convention, and one of the focus that in the debate at UN level has been exactly the lack of comprehensive protection of refugee, including the new category of climate change related refugees. So that's one of the biggest challenges ahead that we have to protect, to identify in the people on the move the category of refugees because of climate change. But what I would like also to underline here, if I may, is the link existing to try to have a comprehensive view about the nexus existing between climate change, moving people because they lost their habitat, their work, so they cannot have access to basic rights. So, and then moving, they can create, for example, in moving to cities, even in the same region or in the same state, they can that can create social conflict, and then internal conflict can be also can produce also additional movement and additional crisis. So it's like a systemic challenge. I can use that expression when we talk about climate change and related related issues. So, and the other suggestion, if I may, is to separate climate change from environmental issues, because climate change, it's one phenomena. The other side is the environmental harms, environmental related harms. It can be caused by humans, but also by states because of omission or act. Have a look, for example, to a few individual communications, and in particular one of 2008 adopted by the Human Rights Committee of the United Nations, condemning the state of Paraguay because the state failed to adopt any possible measures to prevent the loss of life of the victim living in that habitat, which was modified for commercial use. So that's a point, to try to have a systemic view of the phenomena. So thank you very much. Your presentation was wonderful, but also the written contribution. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your valuable feedback, ma'am. Thank you.
Congratulations, first of all, Devarpa, for this presentation. And you have covered almost all the points relating to environmental refugees, and especially the point that they are considered to be, if calling them refugees is kind of insulting them. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so this is a very nice point we put forward, and we have given good suggestions as well. And
yes,
congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Moving ahead, now we have Ms. Tuti Narula Markan, who will be speaking on a perspective on effects of climate change with special reference to the degenerating health of women. Do we have Ms. Tuti Narula Markan here with us?
Srijan, I believe she's facing a technical issue. With the permission of the chair, please move on to the next participant.
Yes, please go ahead, and then when we resolve the problem, we go back to the other, because furthermore, I think that I have not the list of speakers, so I'm just matching the papers, but I have not the list, so please go ahead.
So next up, we have Ms. Sakshi presenting on the topic Refugee Movement, Victims of Climate Change and Disaster Displacement.
Give me a second, please. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, a very good afternoon to one and all. My name is Sakshi and I am pursuing PhD from Jyoti Vidyapeeth University, Jaipur. And for the today's conference, my topic will be refugee movement, victims of climate change and disaster displacement. So, starting with my presentation, I'll start with the introduction. And here I go. Climate change in our time is a defining crisis, and disaster displacement is one of its greatest impacts. Might be on refugees because of climate changes placed as a result of climate-related calamities such as coastal flooding and agricultural disruption. Change in climate Change in climate is known as climate change, and it decays to change and it lasts for decades. The main reason for this climate change is the natural and man-made factors that force climate to change. In the early 1990s, that is in the year of 1990, IPCC, that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, noted that the greatest impact might be on refugees because of the climate change, that is the climate issues which is going through. Refugees are a natural consequence of war, now has become one of the burning issues of the present world. There has been a growing rise of refugees worldwide due to the anarchy and disorder because of war in many Middle East countries. The world's developed countries are not becoming able to find out an effective solution to face this. Human rights need to be protected for those who are uprooted by the disaster, but it has received far too little attention, and for the protection, there is a need for little attention to the rights of these displaced people. As we know, the refugee people, they are not having their rights. So the right to be protected is for the refugee people. Here I have discussed some objectives for my research paper. First is to know about the existing refugee crisis. Second, to analyze the environmental disruptions that led to a large number of environmental refugees. Third, to find out the main reason behind the refugee crisis, that why is there a refugee crisis? Fourth, to address solutions to lessen the refugee crisis. Fifth, to find out the governmental provisions for the governmental refugees, as what government is doing for these environmental refugee people. Last objective, to determine the strategic goals and objectives of future coping mechanisms to reduce the adverse impact of climate change and give solutions to it. Now, who is refugee? A refugee is applied to a person who is outside their home country of citizenship because they have well-founded grounds for fear of persecution because of their race, religion, nationality, membership of the particular social group, and is unable to obtain sanctuary and reside in another country. Now, what are climate refugees? First, we have discussed the definition of refugees. Now, I'll discuss the climate refugees. People who are displaced from or who feel obliged to leave their usual place of residence because of their lives, livelihoods, and welfare have been placed at risk as a result of adverse environmental, ecological, or climate processes and events. Climate change threatens to cause the largest refugee crisis in human history. I'm reading the last point now. Many poorer countries, however, are unlikely to be able to initiate sufficient adaptation programs, and climate-induced migration might be the only option for many countries in the South. Moving to the next slide. I'm discussing issues in providing protection to disaster displaced victims. First is there is discrimination while providing aid on racial, religious, and gender grounds. Sexual and gender-based violence, especially in the camps and shelters. unequal access to food and the supplies. There is a lack of safety in the areas of displacement. Elderly, poor, and displaced people are neglected and exploited. And the last issue is in addressing employment, for poverty and compensation, there is inequity. Okay, now understanding the historical and the present refugee law. If we go back to the history of refugees, it involves going back to the medieval age, as the church performed the job of providing safety to persons who had been persecuted in their native nation. And in the modern time, by the League of Nations and a National High Commission for Refugees in the year 1921, these individuals were termed as refugees. The General Assembly later found that UNHRC, which collaborated with the government to draft the convention relating to the status of refugees and protocol relating to the status of refugees. Now, what are the causes what causes Earth's climates to change? We have the natural causes and the human causes. And the natural causes are volcanic eruption, ocean currents, shift in Earth's orbit, solar variation. And what are the human causes? That is greenhouse gases, deforestation, coal mining, burning of fossil fuels, industrial processes, agriculture. And the effects of climate change. First is there is a rise in sea level, heavy rainfall across the globe, extreme drought, a decline in crop productivity, change in ecosystems, loss of wildlife and biodiversity, and rise in temperature. Surfacing of environmental refugees. There are many conventions are there on refugees, but protection to these people who are fleeing from their home state due to the environmental disaster is not guaranteed by any of them. There are many jurists who argue that the definition of persecution should be expanded. It should expand as it needed to be modified, and as it was outdated because of displacement is more permanent or complex than those contemplated by the convention. It was also contended that the person who is left with no choice but to flee from their home, as they are left with no water from drought, has no food due to flooding. As a result, it was suggested by these jurists only that the starvation and the drought, which are natural calamities, should be included in the definition of the refugee. Now, here are some issues which are related to refugee emergency. The first is emergence of human trafficking, rise of terrorism, victims of racism and inequality, uncertainty in future, involvement in criminals, limited access to quality education, separation from families, and greater vulnerability. Okay, and now I will be discussing some solution for the climate change. The first is using renewable energies and running away from fossil fuels. Second, keep fossil fuels in the ground, investing in the renewable energy, reducing our consumption of energy, stopping deforestation, keeping fossil fuels in the ground, invest in renewable energy, promoting public transportation, promoting large-term infrastructure, encouraging better use of natural resources, switching to the sustainable transport, which improves farming and promote a vegan diet. Restore nature to absorb more carbon, protecting the oceans, and reducing the use of plastic. Now here is the role of UNHRC in addressing climate change and disaster-related displacement. These are finding ways to transition to alternative energy resources with a reference for renewables and offsetting unavoidable emissions to achieve climate neutrality. Second, using the Green Fund long-term sustainability investment. Third is activating greening champions to raise awareness, encouraging best practices, and encourage behavioral change. Establishing a UNHRC environmental policy to ensure long-term and climate smart plans and guidelines in areas such as travel, procurement, supply and logistics, building management, waste and water management, event management, and the communication. Now, this will be the last slide. That is the conclusion. What there is a need? There is a need to protect and assist climate refugees today and in the coming future, as by doing the following things. strengthening resilience through indigenous leadership. Second, support refugee-led organizations. Third, assisting refugees and preparing the cities. As a result, this concept of environmental refugees has become legal problem as the refugees are not recognized under the Refugee Convention. Hence, there is a demand for the term to be expanded. Last but not the least, hence refugees placed in many countries are not living well. They are not given adequate facilities to work and inadequate shelter, only providing the solutions to protect their lives. There is a need for the proper solutions to be taken, and policies in regard should be adopted by the world leaders so that no people suffer at the time of crossing the border, and they should reach the safest place without any harassment. Thank you.
So, Cheers, would you like to question the presenter?
Sakshi, nice presentation, wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.
Talked about the causes of climate change, including natural and man-made, or
yes, ma'am,
human causes. And though there is no control over the natural causes for climate change, but yes, surely we can do something about the human causes. So
yes, ma'am.
that's what I think that is in our control. So
yes, ma'am.
if we realize that it is the nature, we are one with nature, and the coexistence is very important, and there is we cannot exist without the environment or the nature. So that is very
Yes.
important. We should realize that, and we should control. All the suggestions are very good, and we all should understand the importance of these suggestions and inculcate in our daily lives. Thank you, Sakshi, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
If I may, so congratulations. Thank you, Doctor, for your comments, and congratulations to Sakshi for the presentation. I think that is central one point from a legal perspective. So the legal problem ahead is not just to define who is a refugee in relation to climate change, but also which kind of protection must be guaranteed to that category of refugee once we find a real definition. And because it's important in terms of obligation of states and accountability in case of failure to grant protection in relation to refugees and climate change. So I think that the point is to maybe one suggestion can be to have a sort of open indeed working group, like in use at the Human Rights Council in the United Nations system, to study the new legal aspect in relation to the presentation of a new treaty on human rights protection or refugee protection in that case. I'm not sure if it's inside the competence of Human Rights Council, but it can be an option. And the very good point of the Open Indeed working group instrument is that that kind of mechanism inside the Human Rights Council is open not just to state, but all relevant involved stakeholders, and the chair is formed by people coming generally from academia, so they are independent experts, try to write the content. So I think that it can be an option to try to have a new treaty in relation to that. So that's what just the point to underline. Thank you very much.
We'll add the necessary points. Thank you so much.
So moving forward, now we have Ms. Tuti Nirula Markan, who will be speaking on a perspective on effects of climate change with special reference to the degenerating health of women.
Sorry, we can have Stuti Narula now.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Hi, ma'am. Good
I
afternoon.
didn't hear the
Uh,
name. Sorry.
I am so sorry. I have last-minute technical errors. Can my friend share her screen with my PPT? I'm so sorry. It's not just working. I tried and yeah, ma'am, just my friend is just sharing the screen. So I'll just, yeah, I hope it is visible to everyone. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
Shruti,
ma'am, you are.
you can
Okay,
proceed. Yeah.
thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, once again. I am a research scholar at Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, that is in Jaipur. So, the topic for today's presentation is a perspective on effects of climate change with special reference to the degenerating health of women. So, first, I will talk about, as the topic suggests, climate change. Climate change exactly is a change in environmental conditions of the earth. So these climate changes are harmful to both ecosystem as well as human health. So when I talk about the climate changes, so for example, if we go now 10 years back from now on, what happens is, do we really feel that the heat or maybe the cold that we feel these days was it there 10 years ago? I don't think. If the answer is no. Why? Because the climate has drastically dropped down, drastically changed from it was previously. And of course, there are many various reasons that I would be discussing, further. Climate change has effects on human health and it causes diseases as well. But as my topic suggests, I would be discussing about the diseases or the harmful effects that are caused on a woman. Now, as a result of global warming, uh, if we continue with the same thing, it will continue to heat up in the future. Now, when I talk about climate change and its health impacts of women, now women are already, we consider them as, they are giving lives to a new human as well, so they need more nutrition than men. They need more sensitivity, they need more security than men. But due to these climate change and due to these effects that are happening on them, they are becoming malnutrition, especially to the ones who are from a low income background or maybe they who do not have such support as other women do. During these climate disasters, women also suffer from morality as well as survival. They experience very decreased life expectancy. For example, when they give birth to a new human, in such cases, they also have many effects that are not so good. They are considered, when a new baby is born or whatever happens, due to all these things, their health also is degenerated as well as the future generations are also affected. It is also a saying that if we invest in a woman's health, we invest in future generations as well. And I believe that when these climate changes occur, when a woman is affected by all these things and when the health deteriorates, it of course deteriorates for them as well as the future generation. So the poor quality is associated with negative birth outcomes and affects maternal childbirth, that is associated with stillbirth, intrauterine growth restriction, and congenital defects. Women and girls are at higher risk of physical, sexual, and as well as domestic violence. Now, when I talk about domestic violence, what happens is that they are already a weaker section, but yes, of course, I would consider the fact that not all are, but some of them are at a weaker section. And when I talk about domestic violence, including in reference to this climate change, what happens is that already if their health deteriorates, this is a factor which causes mental disorders when they have a poor economic recovery. So when they have mental disorders, they are already dealing with some physical disorders, and this also causes the mental one. The impacts are amplified with all these things when women are on a lower socioeconomic state. Now, next slide, I would now like to continue. How to reduce the gender-specific health threats due to climate change. Now, what happens is, if we want to reduce the specific threats that happen on due to climate change on the specific gender, that is women that I'm talking about in my topic, then we want to reduce it. We need to focus on the new, like we need to give more women, recognize them as caregivers, agents of social change positions, and they would be given empowerment. The main key to this is education. Education regarding the specific health threats of climate change are needed as it is a high time. It is needed in public health policy, medicine, and general education as well. Regions with poor health outcomes should be identified for current and future vulnerability to climate change. Suggestions for reducing climate change effects. A few suggestions that I would like to give just for reducing the climate change effects is we eliminate food waste. Now, if we eliminate food waste, it is a very big reason that if we do not waste the food, we donate them or we, make something out of that when we use it or reuse it. That is a major reason that can have lesser effects of the climate changes. Negative impacts will be reduced if we eat plant-based food. Now, when you talk about plant-based food, it does not mean that you do not eat, you eat only plant-based food and you do not eat anything else. It does not mean that. It simply means that eating plant-based food means that if we talk about a cycle, there's a cycle. When we were young, we used to read that X eats Y eats Z, and it is then so on. But if we eat plant-based food, this continuing the cycle will be reduced. It does not mean that we stop all these things, but if we reduce, we can, of course, contribute from ourselves towards decreasing the effect of climate change. Using the renewable energy. If we use renewable energy, then energy can be reused and then, renew and reuse it, and then more new energy will not have to produce it. So that is why it will also reduce the climate change effect. Participate in the democratic process. Now, when I talk about democratic process, the main point or main idea about this is that when I vote for someone, I vote for a leader of the country or leader of my state. I can vote for some person who is following or is into the environmental changes and all these places that he handles. If a person who is very stern or is very effectively idealistic about saving the environment, then what happens is then that person can of course save it and help the citizens as well. So we should all participate in democratic process, but wisely as well. Now, using the LED lighting. When we talk about LED lighting, it is very common these days, and we all know that LED lighting can, of course, reduce the energy usage and can stop the negative climate change effect. Rethinking transportation. When I talk about rethinking transportation, it simply means that if I have to travel from X place to Y place, I need to rethink, do I really need to use my car or can I go by public transport? Do I really need to run my car and then use the fuel, use the energy, use all these things and contribute to the negative impact for the climate change? Or should I be using a public transport where many people can use only one transport and then there is less usage of all these fuels and all these energies? Recycle. When I talk about recycling simply means whatever can be recycled should be recycled. What happens is we generally use any kind of plastic or whatever, we use it and we throw it. But instead of throwing it, we can put it for recycling so that it can be used further and new things cannot be coming into the picture. And in all these ways, we can reduce the climate change effect. Thank you very, very much. Thanks a lot.
Chairs, would you like to ask a question?
I have just a Congratulations for your presentation and for the topic, especially. It's of my special interest. And in general terms, the role of women in climate change related issues, and especially when they come from local communities. So and when they and how they can improve the best decision, how they can contribute actively into the decision making, especially at international level, not just at local one. But in that case, also the related reproductive health issues are of my concern, because also for genetical modification of reproductive system of women, depending of the impact of environment. It is increasingly a central issue. Many studies are going on, but recently has been published. Sorry, I don't remember the authorship right now, but it was just titled "Health in the Women, Health and Environment." Where also reference is done to more complex issues of to demonstrate the connection between environment change, the climate change, and the genetic, the modification of health at the genetic level. So that's a really, really interesting topic. So I congratulate you to choose the topic, and I just go giving the floor to my co-chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Stuti, it was a good, very nice presentation. A very good topic you have chosen, health of women. So we know what is the importance of women in the society. Yeah, and the importance, because women, they start others' day every day. They do not start their day, they start others' day.
Yes,
So, and they do not look after their own health. So this is really appreciable that you took this to the note. We all should know that how health is important for everyone. And women as a pillar of family, as a pillar of our society, and even scripture, our religious scriptures are talking about the woman status,
yes,
right?
Yes,
So,
yes, of course.
very nice, very nice. Congratulations, Shruti.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Now I would like to call Mr. Devjyoti Das.
Sorry, may I ask to all the participants to switch off the microphone when they are not talking or speaking, because I had many times some noisy interference behind the presenter. So just to a little request. Thank you.
So now I would like to call Mr. Devjyoti Das, who would be presenting on the topic, the unpredictable predicament of environmental.
Thank you, host. Good afternoon, chairs. Just a second, I will share my screen. Chair, kindly confirm if my slides are visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
All right. Good afternoon. So I will be presenting my paper on the title Unpredictable Predicament of Environmental Refugees. In this paper, we have talked about how the international community till today has refrained from has refrained from building or coming together and introducing a law or a treaty for the environmental or climate refugees. So introducing our paper, the problem of climate refugees are well known throughout the world. In most parts, in the first of its kind report that was in incident in Britain, the Welsh villagers in Fairburn faced the threat of flood due to rise in sea levels. The villages that constituted nearly 450 houses are now struck with risk of increase in disaster, which has affected their community lives and livelihood prospects. While some countries, including India and Somalia, have higher levels of internally displaced people due to climate change and related risk, in most poor countries such as Somalia, the consequences have been devastating. In the year 2020-2019, the countries have been disappropriately affected by the climate emergencies. Drought across the countries have led to suffering and displacement, with an estimated 5.4 million individuals predicted to be struggling to feed themselves and their families by July 2020. El Nawawi used the term environmental refugees in 1985 to describe a new group of people. This group includes persons who have been displaced by a significant environmental change that threatens their survival or severely affects their quality of life, whether for a short period or of a long time. In our paper, we stress upon the fact that the word climate refugee is not entirely correct and that it should be replaced with the word environmental refugee. The expression implies that the driving force behind the movement is more generally tied to the environment than particularly to climate change. Environmental migrants can be divided into three broad categories. The temporarily displaced, who will be able to return to their homes after the environmental harm has been remedied, those who are permanently displaced and have migrated to a different location, as well as those that abandon their native environment in pursuit of a higher quality of life, when their previous habitat has been damaged to the point where it no longer provides their fundamental requirements. Next up, we define in our paper that the consequences of establish the consequences of environmental migration. As such, their consequences such as it has been considered an anomaly, even though it is an external sign that a person's life is shambles or he or she is destitute. Although it has its root in environmental issues, it has a political cause, a series of political, social, and economic issues as well. The refugee status, and now coming on to our main topic of discussion, the refugee status. International law does not protect environmental refugees. The refugees fleeing violence or political tyranny suffer less political dangers than those fleeing persecution. This kind of refugee is not like the classic refugee, since they may be deported back to their nation or compelled to live in refugee camps. The vast majority of those fleeing the effects of climate change are fleeing inside their own country. People traveling inside their own nations are said to be engaged in a practice of internal migration. As a result of climate change, many people who live in rural and coastal areas have been compelled to relocate. The problem of displacement of people due to natural factors have occurred way before the scientific interest was taken in climate change as a subject of study. In a proposal for Convention for Climate Refugees, the term climate refugee has been defined as people whom climate change forces to relocate across national borders. While certain countries have taken individual steps in their respective capacities, such as the African Union Convention for Protection and Assistance of Internally Displaced Persons, that has recognized natural factors of climate as a reason for displacement and provides protection thereof, or the Swedish Aliens Act of 2005 that grants asylum to the person displaced due to environmental disaster. Yet internationally, the term has not been given its requisite importance, nor have been the people affected by environment and climate changes given the importance that they deserve right now. It's the time to come to a legal recourse. On behalf of my co-author and myself, we are of the opinion that the level of protection the United Nations have provided with the refugees in the years after World War II should also be accorded to the environmental refugees, because as we have seen and as the trend goes on in environmental refugees are already at a surplus than traditional refugees and are growing constantly exponentially. So coming to our suggestions, we would say that international consensus on protection of displaced people affected by climate change must be based on the understanding of the complex relationship between conflict and disaster in displacement. The two-layered with poverty and weak governance together influences decision to leave a disaffected region. This consensus and recognition becomes even more relevant considering the agenda of sustainability development goals, which is very sad, which in fact is a very sad observation that the COP26 did not even consider while they stressed on different SDGs, and they did not consider environmental refugees problem. The SDGs that recognize the eradication of poverty, climate action, and push for institutions that promote peace and justice. The world cannot expect to achieve sustainable development while ignoring the recognition of rights of millions of people who suffer direct consequences and are suffering the reality of climate change. Thank you.
Any questions for the presenter here? Cheers.
No, just congratulate our presenter. And just to note that sometimes he mixed environmental migrants with refugees, climate change or environmental refugees. I just would like to recall that the right to movement, the freedom of movement of people is a human fundamental right, established at Article 12 between other conventions, but the principal one is the Article 12 of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights of United Nations. So we just start from that point. They have the right to move everywhere and for any reason why. The difference is that if they are obliged, why they are obliged, so which kind of protection we must give to that category of people. So thank you very much.
Congratulations, Dev Jyoti Das. It was good presentation, and the point you made that the environmental refugees, it is matter of concern that this climate, because of this climate change, these refugees, I must not use that word for them. They are really sufferers, and one should, because sustainable development goals, they already talk about the eradication of poverty, their social justice and peace. So all this can be achieved only by improving the status of these people. And your presentation is very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Now, I would like to invite Professor Shashi Kumar, who would be speaking about impact of climate change on indigenous people in India, issue of human rights violation.
Thank you. I'm audible.
Yes,
Good
sir.
afternoon,
Yes.
and maybe good morning to the Professor Elia. Maybe it's the morning time there. Nice to see you here after a long time, but of course in the virtual way. And our Dr. R.K. Randhawa also, she respected panelist. My topic, I am Shashi Kumar from Department of Human Rights, Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University. Actually, I wanted to participate in this. I want to learn from the newcomers, new scholars, what is they having in mind about the climate change and the impacts, what is their different topics. So that's why I have participated. It's a good international conference because many eminent scholars are also participating. And morning I have listened Professor Antonita's lecture also, very inspiring, very knowledgeable. So starting my presentation, it's a made in hurried way. I'm screen sharing. Just a minute. It is seen?
No.
Oh. Just a minute. How to share?
Yes, we see the screen right now.
Is it? It's visible. Oh,
Yeah.
so impact of climate change on indigenous people, a issue of human rights violation. As we all know, the climate change is affecting all people, and mostly it affected the indigenous people because they are living in the tropical area, in the forest, in the hilly areas, in the mountains, and in the riverside, in near sea coastals. So they are directly affected by the climate vulnerabilities, and they are not directly involved in the process of, you can say, polluting the environment or ecology. So they have no role at all, but they are being affected much because of the climate. And just let me check here. Oh, climate change and human rights. And as we all know, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, fifth assessment report has, now we have six also. It has that the climate change will affect millions of people, and this also have relationship with the human right. Climate violates the human rights like right to life, right to food, health, water, development, all the issues, almost all the rights, human rights, which are affected by the climate. And you all know that indigenous people also having their rights. Their rights have been recognized their struggle. They have been struggled for a long time for their recognizing their human rights, and ultimately in the 2007, an UN Declaration Rights of Indigenous People, their rights have been recognized, enumerated, and it has been rectified, signed by many countries also. In India, you also have signed that declaration, but it's just a declaration. It's not just it's inspirational. It is not being effective through their domestic laws or national laws, you can say. But coming to the climate change, sorry. Indigenous peoples. If you see in the world around, the indigenous peoples are living in the many areas, Arctic, Amazon, Pacific Ocean, also Australia, Mediterranean Sea, where Ilya has worked a lot on climate effect. And because in the Mediterranean Sea also, those who are living in the coastal areas, they are facing the rise in the sea level. And because of that, their lives have been endangered. Those who are living in the Mediterranean Sea. And now the status of indigenous people in these are some climate change, how they have been affecting the life of the indigenous peoples in the Amazon rainforest area, the Yonomite, and their life are also affected. In Geta, Sami, Inuit in Canada, these are some tribals, some indigenous peoples. Even America also, I have studied there that the Native American people in Alaska and in the North Dakota area, they are also being affected by the climate. And in Australia, we have already seen that the wildfire in the forest has affected them. And in India also, those, because in India we have 650 around the tribal people. They call it as Adivasi, Banwasi, and they're living in the forest. They are surviving on the forest for their livelihood. But due to the deforestation and due to the industrialization, urbanization, their forests being cut down, industries are being set up there in their regions. And these Indian people are having very close relationship with their land. They worship the land. They have the spiritual relationship with the land. They worship the land, religious there, and they want to maintain, protect their cultural right also, their indigenous rights, customary laws they want to just protect. And somehow this state are interfering in their domain by development process, and they have been induced also. They have been displaced from their places. At one time, the state is displacing them from their roots, then the land, and the other hand, the climate is also they're forcing them to shift somewhere. So they are also the victim of climate refugee, whatever they are refuse from the climate refugee also. So state also they're harming them. They are throwing out from their forests and the climate also. And let me in the climate impact of on the India. In India, the tribal areas are like Odisha, Jharkhand, Karnataka. Here, they are facing the adverse impact of climate change on the economy there, and in the Indian community in Soliga, semi-nomadic hunter tribes in Karnataka, they are suffering the erratic rainfalls. Rainfalls also affecting the cultivation. In Andaman Nicobar, there is a Jaraba tribe. This tribe is in the verge of extinct. They're going to disappear from the earth because of this climate. Because there is no effort to surviving them. And Sundarban areas also, the erratic climate change, storm, cyclone. We found many cyclones are coming in Indian coastal areas every year. And now coming to the adaptive measures, because the indigenous have since centuries, they are having a unique knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, and because of this knowledge, they are surviving in the earth. You can say, since beginning, the climate is not the new one, a new phenomena. For them, climate is for since centuries. The climate is affecting them, and they are shifting their inhabitants, and they're adopting new strategies for their survival. So they have a unique knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, which is make them to survive. And what the even UN also has to have, and the Intergovernmental Climate Change Conference also they have accepted. They have recognized that the that is this knowledge can be used for adaptation policy of climate change. And let me tell, in the um, fourth assessment report of Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, the Indians' knowledge has an invaluable basis for developing adaptation and natural resource management strategies in response to environmental and other forms of changes. So they have capacity to tackle the problem of climate change, and the adaptive policies and the strategy of indigenous people can be learned for the government to implement these policies, these strategies in tackling the climate change problems. And even in the Paris Agreement conference in 2015 also, the they have recognized the we can say the traditional knowledge of these indigenous people in tackling the climate change problems. But now Indian situation is that in India is also a stewardship in fighting against the climate. And India it has environmental law also, policies. It has enacted many laws for the protection of environment, for safeguarding the environment. Climate policy in India. We all know that India has submitted the national communication to UNFCCC. India has also have an action plan. And recently, our Prime Minister in the Glasgow conference has that zero emission policy by 2079. And India in the communication, international in the communication, national communication to USC has promised to reduce the 30% of carbon emission, and 30% carbon emission through the mitigation and adaptation measures. And it also India has prepared the climate change action program. And there are so many programs is there in my paper here. I mentioned that programs, and even the state government also have made the state action climate change action programs. But one thing I was just emphasizing here that the indigenous knowledge, the ecological knowledge of the indigenous people, the tribal people, their knowledge is not been due recognized by the government policies. Where the government, where the tribals are inhabited, the state where tribals are living much in the large number, if the state government of that particular state can take the help of the tribal people, they can take the help in the decision-making process, they can frame out the policies, climate change policies, with the help of this tribal people, then I think this climate problem can be tackled better way. And the adaptive measures and the mitigation measures is there, but we have to take the knowledge of the tribal also. So in the policies also, I think we should give the due respect to the indigenous peoples. And I think I don't have much time. So thank you for giving the opportunity. And one thing last, let me say, cultural sovereignty. The culture, because indigenous people are not having their political sovereignty in other countries much in the effective manner, but they have the cultural sovereignty, which is Rebecca Tosi of the climate professor in the US. She has said that these people have the cultural sovereignty, and these indigenous people of all the countries, they are sharing the same problem of climate emergencies, climate vulnerability. So the cultural sovereignty, they have a strong hold over their tradition, their land, forest. So we should respect their culture, their identity, and also protect their self-determination also. With these words, I am thanking the organizers for giving the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Any questions from the chair?
First, I would like to give my special salutation to Dr. Shashi Kumar. I met virtually him because he and the distinguished dean at his department and the school invited me in a conference for the celebration of the Human Rights Day last December 10th. So I'm very happy to meet him again, even if online, unfortunately. And thank you for your presentation, very interesting topic. And actually, I used your presentation partially doing reference to the role of local community in my introduction in the introductory session, in the first session, because it is important to have integrated also not just into the decision making, but also have a look to the traditional instrument uses by local community to maintain such equilibrium within nature. And also to find a way, and that's the obligation of a state, to take measure to guarantee the identity of local community, which include also the right over the land, to contribute to the identity of a community. So thank you very much. It's very interesting also the reference to the Indian study, and the curiosity I have, I guess that the data collected by India are also shared with the expert at United Nations level, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you very much.
I will do it. I will take the data also, government data and some reports from the people. Then I will improve the paper also. I'm thinking.
So yeah, I saw in the paper, but my question was because it's important to collect the data from
Yes,
different parts of the globe to contribute to the global report. So my curiosity is about if the Indian study, scientific study, has also can used and communicated to the IPCC report to
Yes,
contribute. Yeah. Okay, that's the
in-
question.
In fact, I'm working. I'm going to have a project also on that area to have
Okay.
so that we can collect the data from all over the world on the Indian papers, their impact, what is their data there.
Okay.
I'm planning out this.
Great.
And
So, sorry, please.
I'm also thank you for your valuable comments and suggestions that you have given to me.
No, it's my pleasure. So please extend my salutation also to all members of your faculty.
And I also willing to take the help on your work, Mediterranean Sea, climate change impact on Mediterranean Sea. Yeah.
I can't hear you well.
Climate change impact of climate on Mediterranean Sea. Mediterranean Sea. No.
I can't hear you well. So, but maybe you switch it. You have a low volume at the screen. I can't hear you well. Speak up.
Okay. Mediterranean Sea is here.
Oh, okay.
No problem.
So, thank you.
I will text you later on.
Okay, great. Better.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Shashi sir. It was great, and you rightly quoted Mahatma Gandhi here that Earth cannot satisfy the greed of humans. So, with this note, I would like to congratulate you.
This is my first session with this your institution, Delhi Metro, this institution. So I thought to come to physically also.
Sure, sure.
Whenever I get a chance to visit your institution, I will come and do visit.
Sure, sir. It would be our pleasure to host you here. And thank you very much. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Due to some unavoidable circumstances, Dr. Randhawa will be taking our leave. Thank you, ma'am, for your presence.
Okay, Professor Antonita, thank you.
Moving.
Yeah.
Going. Oh, sorry.
Urgent, unavoidable situation, and thank you for being here. And it was really nice to co-chair with you. It's a great learning, and I was going through your report. It's very elaborative and comprehensive. And I have downloaded it, and we'll be going through it. So thank you for sharing this report. Thank you very much.
No, my pleasure. Thank you very much to be with me and to let me share the screen today. Have a nice day, and I hope to meet in person soon.
Yeah,
stay in
sure.
touch.
It would be great for us. And Dr. Mitali will be co-chairing with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So I take your leave, ma'am.
Hello, Dr. Mitali.
So we have good afternoon, ma'am. Now joined by Dr. Mitali Shiva, who is a PhD.
Yeah, here.
Dr. Mitali Srivastava is a PhD in labor law from the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. She has been teaching as an assistant professor since September 2014 and is also UGC NET qualified. She did her from Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur in 2014 and also pursued BA LLB honors program from Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Patiala. Now, I would invite Mohammad Amjad Ansari on the topic Gender and Climate Change, a critical analysis. Do we have Mohammad Amjad Ansari here with us?
Maybe some troubles with the line connection, maybe.
So with the permission of the chair, shall we move forward?
Yes, I think that we can go ahead and then go back like we did before. It's
Okay.
better. Thank
So
you.
moving ahead, we have Miss Punita Parsoya, who would be speaking on impact of climate change on the existence and survival of the transgender community.
Good afternoon, everyone, and others, and very good morning to Dr. Amelia. And before starting my presentation, if you don't mind, can someone has a mic on? Can you put?
Sorry to interrupt you, madam. Welcome. Firstly, just a kind reminder. Please switch off your microphone if you are not speaking, because it is not correct toward your colleague who is presenting. Thank you very much.
Yes. Before starting my presentation, I would like to present my PPT, Harshal. Thank you so much. So my name is Punita Parsoya. I'm a research scholar, and the topic of my article today is impact of climate change on the existence and survival of the transgender community. This is a sub-theme of my sub-theme that is under the gender and climate change. So till now we have touched women and climate change so far very much, but this is the topic which is very untouched right now. So I would like there's a disturbance, I think. Okay, I'm audible.
Yes, right now, yes, because
Yeah.
they switched
so
off.
sorry from the technical issue from the other side. I think they have
No,
put
it's
on the
not
mic.
your fault. I think it's
Yes,
the
ma'am.
fault of
Yeah.
other people connected. That's
Yes,
why.
ma'am. Okay. So coming directly to the topic, because we have we are sitting from very long time, so I'm directly want to connect. I don't want to go through the other slides, because by presenting myself through a slide point to point, it will be like just reading lines, and it will be no meaning. So it will be better to connect one to one and share the our discussion with others also. So it will be a great impact on this topic and justice to this topic. So first of all, if we talk about the India specifically, after NALSA 2019, we got the third gender as an identity to the transgender. Why would I like to talk about specifically about a transgender community? Because if we in general life, if we go roam around us, we see in society, we couldn't find a single person in daily basis. We can't find the transgender as living their normal life. Why? The most reason is behind this, because the society behind this, because society has discarded them, because they don't like to see them. But what I feel from their side, that I should represent them, because no one will take this opportunity to represent in such a great platform, so that people will think again and again about for the upliftment and the development of the transgender community. So when we talk about sustainable development, it starts with the present generation, and goes with the future generation. That's a normal and general topic, and general what we call doctrine, or the what we call the the main motive behind the sustainable development is we have to focus on the present generation and regarding the resources and the other things. But what we are doing regarding the transgender community, we are neglecting them, totally neglecting them. So with the introduction, I would like to connect that development, transgender community, and and the climate change. They all everything are interlinked. How we will come later when we will discuss all other points. So as you started in the inaugural ceremony, it's not about the UN people state sitting in the UN, about the India, Portugal, and Spain. It's about we. Every individual should talk about every individual. About every community. So this is why I would like to I would like to state that it is not about me, it's about we. So that's why, coming to the point, there is a particular role about international institution which is lagging behind even it says sustainable development goals of 2030. So talk specifically about women. It's time come. The time has come to talk about this community also, so that somehow we represent at an international level, and we will try to connect them at each local level and national level. So moving forward to the next slide, I would like to describe how the transgender link to the climate change, whether climate change is generally gender neutral or not, or the transgender are positive agents of climate change or not, and is the justification to the this marginal group or not. So while we're talking about this, if we're talking about basic, in India we used to say a person should have roti kapda makan, that is right to food, right to shelter, and right to livelihood. These three basic resources which should be every human being. And as we know, transgender are also a human being. We should not treat them as out of the society. We should provide them these basic needs, that is food, livelihood, and the shelter. So if we talk about what about their livelihood and shelter, they're more or less directly connected to their what we call their earning capacity, their education, their background. If we start from the bottom, society has already discarded, thrown out of the society. Then second, come to the point, if we talk about education, that then only they will be able to grab some livelihood, substances and resources. But somehow, if we as we have right 21A, Article 21A of the Indian Constitution, that talks about right to education, but they don't have access to this particular measures. So how would they able to earn in their life and get a proper livelihood and proper food and shelter? On the other side, if we talk about the state's responsibility, that comes the DKSPs. State also have not, they have made in India, they have made a Transgender Act 2019. But for me, that is only a piece of paper, because as you already, Dr. Ilian, you said, that is policy and law that should be work together. If you have a law but you don't have policy, that it will not, it is dealt out as a null or zero outcome. So that's the reason transgender community are more vulnerable in comparison to other reasons, because they don't have access to food. Even though people don't want to talk to them in general life, this is a real example which I can denote. When I was in Delhi, I was sitting in a metro and in a what we call the general compartment. Everyone surrounded by, they were looking at that particular person who is a transgender in a very pathetic way, that they are the we treat better. We treat animals better in respect of the transgender in reality. But thing is that people acceptability towards this their community has to be taken out, and then only then the gender equality in real sense in perception of climate change will taken off. Or for example, if we come to the slide, then we can see the 4 points: then gender equality, transgender status, capacity of protection. So here I would like to that first of all we have to teach them, these communities, we have to educate them about what the particular what is the meaning of climate change, what is the aspect of environmental issues. If they are unaware about these things, then it's very hard to cope up this situation. So with this I would like to end my presentation and get your feedback for my presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope you like the presentation.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I congratulate you also because it's a very not so considered topic, actually, because it's maybe it is a new item to be considered as a part in need, as a group, a part in need of protection, of special protection in relation to climate change, and on the other side, in relation to which kind of impact it can be, because the impact is different also over those group of people. So I congratulate you for the choice of topic. It's very interesting, and thank you very much for your presentation to be with us today. Sorry for the noisy interference, but sometimes people forget to switch off the microphone. So
it always happens. Thanks so much.
Ms. Punita, congratulations for choosing such a unique topic. It was truly something that we do not ordinarily think about. It's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now I would like to invite Mohammad Amjad Ansari, presenting on the topic Gender and Climate Change, a critical analysis.
hello, hi.
Hello. Hi. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
We're able to hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you. You can hear us.
Hello.
I think you still have trouble with the connection because we can hear you, but maybe you cannot hear us. So listen, try to resolve the technical problems. Otherwise, no worry if you cannot present because of that. We try to go ahead, and then we will return back to you, hoping you will resolve the technical problem. Okay, so no worry, I'm reading here. So
So shall we move forward, Chair?
yeah, I'm going just to answer
Now I would like to invite Ms. Devadarshini and Mansi to present their paper on critical study on the causes and consequences of displacement of environmental refugees. I guess we don't have the presenters here with us. So moving ahead, we have Ms. Neha Mago speaking on the topic Influence of Population Growth on Juvenile Delinquency.
Hello.
Do we have Ms. Neha Mago with us?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, just wait for, just wait. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
And is my screen is visible?
Yes, partially, yes.
Okay, thank you
Could
so
start
much.
the slideshow, it would be better.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is it fine?
No, ma'am.
A very good afternoon to everyone. I am pursuing my PhD from Jyoti Vidyapeeth University, Women's University, Jaipur. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for giving me this platform to present my paper. And my topic is Influence of Population Growth on Juvenile Delinquency. The objective behind my topic is, first, to know the factors which are responsible for juvenile delinquency. Second, why 2015 new act enacted instead of amending the existing Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2000. Third, how the population growth influenced the growth of juvenile delinquency. Now I would like to start my topic with a quote given by Rabindranath Tagore. Our nation's children are its supremely important asset, and the nation's future lies in their proper development. An investment in children is indeed an investment in future. A child is born innocent, but certain social and environmental factors divert their mind toward criminal tendencies. If nourished with tender care and attention, he or she will blossom. Various theories and studies have shown and come to a conclusion that most of the factors which are responsible for delinquency are neglect are broken families, financial instability, physical or sexual abuse, deficient educational system, unhealthy environmental conditions, racial discrimination, the influence of media, unhealthy living conditions of slums, and increasing population, friends, company, etc. Now I will talk about who is a juvenile. According to Juvenile Justice Act 1986, juvenile is a child. A boy is a child who is less than 16 years of age. A girl is a child who is less than 18 years of age. As per the Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2000, juvenile is a age of a boy and girl was uniformly raised to 18 years. Juvenile or child as a person who has not completed 18 years of age. As per Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection Act 2015, it defined child means a person who has not completed 18 years of age. According to this act, under Section 2, Clause 35, a child who is below the age of 18 years, it can be defined as a child who has not attained a certain age at which he should be treated like an adult under the law of the land and cannot be held legally answerable for his criminal acts. A juvenile is referred to an adolescent person between childhood and manhood, as the case may be, who indulge in some sort of antisocial behavior which is not checked, may turn him into a potential offender. Now, the meaning of juvenile delinquency. The juvenile delinquency is a behavioral disorder which is generally defined as a child trying or pretending to grow and act like an adult. Delinquency refers to an abnormal behavior of a child. Delinquent usually refers to a person who show illegal behavior and deviated from the normal course of social life. Delinquency is unwelcomed action of a child which is socially not permitted by the society. A juvenile delinquent is a disorder which is defined as a child acting like an adult. The action of the child may seem to be very foolish, but actually it is a matter of serious concern. Now, I will talk about act of delinquency include absconding from residence without parents' permission, misbehavior beyond control, use of foul languages, violation of any law of state, indulging in sexual offenses, shoplifting, pickpocketing, etc. Now I would like to give a brief about the historical background of juvenile justice system in India. Various laws have been enacted. History of legislation enacted in country concerning the children. First, the Apprenticing Act 1850. Second, the Reformatory School Act 1876. Third, the recommendations of the Indian Jail Committee 1919 to 1920. Next, Children Act 1960. Children Act 1960 was firstly enacted after India became independent. Now, after that, the Juvenile Justice Act 1986. The juvenile justice system in India originated during the British rule and was the direct consequence of the Western idea and development in the field of prison reforms and juvenile justice. Before 19th century, children were considered as young adults and were tried as an adult in court. Children were sent to adult jail, but instead of reforming, they learned more about the crimes. The government of India passed the Children Act 1960. This act prohibited the imprisonment of children in any circumstances and preferred to provide care, welfare, proper training, education, protection, and rehabilitation to children. To remove the inherent lacunas in above mentioned act, the Children Amendment Act was passed in 1978. On 22nd August 1986, the Juvenile Justice Bill 1986 was introduced in the Lok Sabha. Its object was to pay greater attention to children who are found in situation of social ill treatment, destitution, or neglect. Loophole and lacunas in 1986 Act had to make a way for a new act, that is the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2000. In this act, the age was uniform for both male and female, that is 18 years, below 18 years. After that, on 16 December 2012, a Nirbhaya case, in one of the very important case, Nirbhaya case, Delhi, which is also known as Delhi gang rape case, the unfortunate and barbaric gang rape incident of Delhi shocked the entire nation and brought forth the existing lacunas in the present juvenile law. It was due to this incident the existing juvenile law suffered a nationwide criticism because juvenile, especially between the age group of 16 to 18 years, get involved in the crimes like rape and murders. Responding to the public emotions, the central government enacted the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015, which has come into effect from 15 January 2016, repealing the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2000. It allowed the juvenile in conflict with law in the age group of 16 to 18 years involved in heinous crime to be tried as adult. Actually, ma'am, in this case, there was a person who was offender and he was below 18 years of age. He was like 6 months short of 18 years of age, and he was sent to 3 years, and he was sent to the institution for 3 years. And after that, he will be released. That's why the politicians were forced to enact the legislation, and there was a need to change the law. But due to the person's opinion, due to the public opinion, the age was not reduced to 16 from 18, but it was decided because it was violation of right of children. But Supreme Court, while hearing the cases related to juvenile crimes, observed that there is a need to review 2000 Act due to the increasing heinous offenses by juveniles. In this case, further, the Supreme Court observed for crimes like rape, murder, it is very hard to conceive that the juvenile was not aware about the consequences. That's why a new legislation passed by Rajya Sabha, that is Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015. The Juvenile Justice Act 2015 introduced many changes to the existing law based on the requirement of the day in terms of reforming the laws and making the juvenile justice system more responsive to the changing circumstances of the society. The Juvenile Justice Act 2015 provides for strengthened provisions for both children in need of care and protection and children in conflict with law. There is a clear distinction made between children in conflict with the law and children in need of proper care and attention. But this clear distinction was not given in the previous act, that is 2000. The act defined orphaned, surrendered, and abandoned children. It also gives definition. This act also clarified the offenses, that is petty offenses, serious offenses, and heinous offenses, crimes by children. A heinous offense is one that attracts a maximum punishment for 7 years imprisonment under any existing law. A serious offense is one that attracts imprisonment of 3 to 7 years. A petty offense is one that attracts a maximum of 3 years imprisonment. The Act gives more clarity on the functions and power of the Juvenile Justice Board and the Children Welfare Committee. Actually, ma'am, before the enactment of this Act, in 2000 Act, the authorities, the institutions, and the functionaries, they were not clear about their roles and responsibilities. Like Child Welfare Committee, their duty is to protect, and their duty is to provide the proper care and protection to the children. But in many cases, it was seen that they are passing adoption orders as well, but the adoption orders in reality will only be passed by the court. That's why this Act 2015 clarify and bring the clarity and clear what is the respective role of each and every authority. Now comes to children in conflict with law. The juvenile in conflict with law has been redefined in the Juvenile Justice Act 2015 as a child in conflict with law. Offenses have been categorized as petty, serious, and heinous offenses. Children in the age group of 16 to 18 years may be tried as adults in case of heinous offenses after preliminary assessment by the Juvenile Justice Board. A child in conflict with law will be sent to an observation home temporarily during the pendency of inquiry. The child will be segregated according to age, gender, physical, and mental status and nature of offense. Now,
sorry to interrupt you, but you are very over the time. So I just invite you to conclude because
okay, ma'am.
Until now you are the unique presenter over the.
Yeah, sure, ma'am, sure. I am just talking about the factors which are responsible, and after that I will.
Yeah, I know, but we scheduled the 12 minutes to everyone in order to discuss, because we have the presentation in writing. So it's a very interesting presentation, but please conclude.
I apologize, ma'am. I'm just dictating few points, and after that I will conclude.
Okay, please.
Factors which are responsible for juvenile delinquency: development abnormality, dominance, poverty, broken families, psychological issues, social and moral problem in family, educational institution, increasing population, and impact of modernization. Influence of population growth on juvenile delinquency. It is one of the main causes of juvenile delinquency. The increasing population and the corresponding economic, cultural, and social heterogeneity boost up the disparities, conflict, and deviant opportunities. At the same time, weaken the law enforcement measures. Size of the family is considered as a determinant factor of delinquency. Now, ma'am, I would like to conclude my topic. Children are the most vulnerable group in any country and in need of greatest social care. On account of their vulnerability and dependence, they can be exploited, ill-treated by anti-social elements in the community. The state has the duty to provide proper care and protection to children. all time, as it is on their physical and mental well-being that the future of the nation depends. Emphasis on implementation of preventive measures is must before the children even reach the extreme stage of delinquent behavior. Although the law is fairly progressive, but still there is a certain gap that could need to be filled by effective reforming, treating and rehabilitating juvenile. The central and the state government need to take measures to execute the legal provisions effectively and take seriously the recommendations made by committee authority to achieve the results. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you to you. Thank you for that interesting topic. And she's with us? Yes. Okay. You disappeared on the screen. So thank you very much. Very interesting topic and issue. And I have a question in particular about maybe it's in your research at large, because of course I agree with you that the children are the most vulnerable group everywhere, practically, and in every situation. And delinquency is related to lack of opportunities, of course, and a lack of social justice, especially. So the question I have, and I don't know if it's in your research, there is any reference in your research to any kind of welfare measure, additional measure, access to education for children and adolescent, juvenile, who have been supposed guilty and then sanctioned for having committed any crime. In other words, in case the juvenile system, in case an adolescent committed any kind of crime and he is sanctioned according to the law, he has the possibility to be recuperated by the system while he is inside the jail, paying for the crime he committed.
Ma'am, that's why the juvenile directly not sent to the jail. There is a juvenile justice board who first conduct the inquiry, and after that the inquiry, they try to know whether the person whether the child below the age of 18 years who has committed the offense, whether he knew about the circumstances, whether he knew that whatever he is doing is wrong. If the juvenile justice board think that he is capable to understand the nature of the offense, he is capable to understand the circumstances of the offense, then he will send to court to be tried as an adult. But if the court thinks that he was not able to understand the nature of the consequences, then he will be sent to the institutions, to the observation homes, so that the proper environment will be given to him. And instead of keeping him with the adult, it is necessary that he should be kept with the people where he can adopt the good direction in his life.
Okay, but if in the first case you mentioned, he understands and he is processed, and then found guilty of a crime, sanctioned as an adult inside the system of sanction, that adolescent, hypothetical adolescent I mentioned, can have access to education, for example, to improve himself during the restriction of liberty.
Ma'am, in that case, Nirbhaya case, in that case, that person was sent to the institution for 3 years, and that's why it was like the objections were raised by the people that this is not somewhere it is injustice, and this is not justice with the victim who has already suffered because of the person. That's why the in order to cover all the lacunas in 2015 Act came into force, so that the child who is below 18 years of age, and if he has committed such heinous offense, like he should not be like escape. He should not be like escape from the liabilities for the crime whatever he has committed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Let's move on to the next speaker, please.
Yes, ma'am. Moving on to
Now
the
we have
next.
Ms. S. Tejasri presenting a paper on human rights in Asian region, environment sustainability in a legal scenario.
Hello, welcome.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, well, one and all.
Good morning to me, but it's okay.
I'm sharing my screen. Today, my topic for this is
Yes, we see.
human rights in Asian region, environment sustainability in a legal scenario. And I am a research scholar, Koner Lakshmi Education Foundation, Guntur, Andhra Pradesh. And Asia is the world's largest continent. Asia is bounded by different land masses, that is on the east, the Pacific Ocean, South Indian Ocean, and so and so. Human rights are the basic rights and freedom that belongs to all people in the world from birth to death. These rights are based on shared values like dignity, equality, fairness, respect, and independence. These ethics are protected and defined by the law of various countries. Human rights are very important because no one should be abused or discriminated against, and because everyone should have the chance to develop their talents. The human rights and environment. What is the relation between human rights and environment? All human beings depend on the environment in which we live. A safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is integral to the full enjoyment of a wide range of human rights, including the rights to life, health, food, water, and sanitation. Without a healthy environment, we are unable to fulfill our aspirations. The relation between human rights and environment was first recognized by US Assembly in late 1960s. In 1970s, the US Assembly was recognized that there must be relation both right to life and environment. In addition to this, UN Human Rights Commission has made several resolutions in linking both human rights and environment. International laws. What are the international laws on this particular human rights and environment? They are on the environment, general awareness of environmental issues, with the first globally applicable international conventions or multilateral environment agreements being agreed in the 1970s and 80s. These include in the 1971 Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, the 1972 World Heritage Convention, the 1973 Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, United Nations Environment Program. It is also another important program addresses environmental issues at the global and regional levels. Its core objectives are to serve as an authoritative advocate for the global environment, to support governments in setting the global environment agenda. In main, the constitutional provisions in India are Article 51G. It shall be the duty of every citizen to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, rivers, and wildlife. And like that, Article 47 and 48A, in particular, it should take steps for preserving and improving the breeds and prohibiting the slaughter of cows and calves and other milch and draft cattle. Procedural aspects of human rights in environmental degradation. What is the procedural aspects? The innovative methods include both procedural and substantive features. Procedural innovations mean the judicial activities which develop or enhance the existing procedure of the environment jurisprudence for protection and improvement of the environment. These include activists like expanding the sphere of litigation, hearing cases, filing on behalf of another affected party, the appointment of expert committee, conducting field visits to know ground realities, and appointment of amicus curiae to represent affected parties. Whereas the substantial innovations refer to the decisions of the court that creates. defines or rejects policy and governance structure for environment protection, and prescribes the method of implementation of such policies. There are some environmental issues before the Supreme Court of India was Rural Litigation and Entitlement Kendra and Ganga Water Pollution case. All these are public interest litigations helped to change the form and substance of environmental jurisprudence. It provides many benefits like giving voice to inanimate objects which cannot represent themselves in litigation. However, there are certain concerns relating to pill which need attention. For instance, the pill method can become an attention-seeking mode for a few individuals, and sometimes the case takes more than a decade to settle and thus becomes an expensive mode of redressal. And here I conclude and suggest that it is evident that environmental and human rights are closely related. The development of the relation between human rights and environment would facilitate the merging of human rights principles within an environmental scale. Now, human rights would be strengthened by the amalgamation of environment concern, providing victims of environmental dilapidation the opportunity of access to justice and enabling the expansion of the scope of human rights protection and generation of concrete solutions for cases of degradation. Connecting human rights and the environment brings victims of environmental degradation nearer to the mechanisms of protection that are provided for by human rights. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting topic, but I have few perplexities, if I may. Because you make a reference to procedural aspects in relation to human rights. But procedural aspect at the international level, actually there is not a specific jurisdiction at the international level competent over climate change issues or environmental crimes, etc. Actually is under discussion the definition of ecocide as a crime, as an international crime in the public debate, but not only. But there is an exception at international level because it's different at national one. The Supreme Court of India, for example, like you rightly mentioned, and all the Supreme Tribunal in other states interpret the fundamental principle of the state, which also include the respect of environment, especially the Constitution of India. So that's different. In the case of human rights access to justice, since you mentioned international legal order, the first human rights jurisdiction defining the right to the healthy environment is the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. And both at cases, at contentious cases, and then in the advisory opinion on the definition of Article 26 of the Convention as an autonomous right and basically as a fundamental right to the effective enjoyment of other rights enshrined in the same Inter-American Convention. Then also in the European system, there are quick differences between regional system of protection at international level. So it was just a precision because human rights, the definition or references, I think that we should take into account also the possibility to have access to an international jurisdiction for climate change related human rights violations, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We may move forward, please.
Yes, ma'am. Moving on to our the final.
Your microphone. Please, your microphone.
Sorry, ma'am. I apologize. Moving forward, we have our final speaker for the day, Mr. Akhilesh Kumar, who would be speaking on National Human Rights Institution in Environment Protection and Constitutional Values.
Hello.
This is a final call for all of the presenters who were not able to present earlier due to a technical issue that they were facing. I would now like to call out their names. We have Mr. Bhuvan Sharma, Muhammad Amjad Ansari, Professor Ms. Devadarshini B, and Mr. Akhilesh Kumar. If any of you are present and able to present, please let us know.
I think they have no access to a stable connection, because I saw that they have, they are connected, but they don't have switch on the video, neither the microphone. So I think it's merely a technical problem. That's not.
I understand, ma'am. So with your permission, could we move on to the vote of thanks?
Yes, just let me spend a few words for our lost speakers. So no worry, we of course understand that there are technical problems. So doesn't matter if you couldn't present your paper. We already received your written paper, so we had the time to review and evaluate and make consideration about. So at least I received them and I had a look previously. So no worry. There will be other occasions. So that's the opportunity to, if I may, extend the congratulations and renew the congratulations to all the participants, including the missed presenters, for their invaluable contribution. And I just would like to make a suggestion for another topic related to environmental issues and climate change, which is the organized crime implication in relation to environmental issues in both sides. Activities carried out by organized crime impacting our environment, and on the other side, the use of the use of climate change and the use of the environment as an instrument of profit by organized crime. I think, for example, Miss Gandhi early in the morning did mention to animals, specific animals at risk of extinction. So what about the traffic of such animals and the implication of organized crime, especially in certain areas of the globe? I think, for example, to the commerce of certain part of tigers for commercial use, but black commercial use, uncovered commercial use, because many Asian countries now adopted the specific laws protecting specific animals and plants. So that commerce became irregular and controlled by organized criminal organizations. So it will be also interesting, maybe as a topic to see. So that said, thank you very much. I take the advantage to express my very profound gratitude for the kind invitation to share views and to stay with all of you, hopefully next time in person. So thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. Before concluding, I would like to thank all of the chairs. It was great having you with us and very enlightening for all of us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all of the speakers, all of the presenters for their presentation and sharing their invaluable knowledge with us. Their very valuable knowledge with all of us. With this, we come to the very end of this technical session 5. Thank you everybody for joining in. You may stay back to record your attendance by filling out the attendance form that is shared in the chat box below. And stay safe, everyone. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Doctor. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. It was an honor for us.
I would like to request all of the participants to kindly fill out the attendance form that is circulated in the chat box below. Thank you, everybody. We will be ending the meeting now. Have a great day.